The testimonies featured on this channel are presented as received, reflecting the personal experience and perspectives of the individuals who have generously shared them with us. We encourage our viewers to approach these testimonies with compassion and understanding, as these are personal testimonies of people involved. We also encourage you to always refer to the Holy Bible and the teachings of Jesus Christ and his apostles for guidance. You can consider subscribing to the channel to support our ministry. She was born into the loving arms of a Christian family, baptized as a baby, raised in the church choir, and taught to pray before every meal. Her name was Mary, and her heart once beat in rhythm with Sunday sermons, worship songs, and late-night devotions. But in the most unexpected twist of life, her story would take a turn so dark, so deceptive, that it would steal years of peace from her soul. Mary's fall into the depths of deception didn't happen overnight. It began subtly, like a shadow creeping slowly across a room. It began with a smile. A charming, smooth-talking young man on her college campus, Muslim, confident, and dangerously persuasive. He made her laugh. He listened. He quoted scriptures from the Bible and the Quran. He told her that Islam respected Jesus, that it was just a final message, that Christianity and Islam were not that different. And Mary, a bright but naive young woman looking for love, found herself wrapped in a storm that would change her name, her faith, and her entire destiny. She thought she was building a future. Instead, she was being led into a carefully constructed trap, one that would cost her identity, her peace, and almost her life. She became Zanab, a Muslim wife, a mother of 3, covered from head to toe, silenced in voice, crushed in spirit, trapped in a marriage where love was twisted into control. Faith was used as a weapon, and questioning was forbidden. But what if the very book used to silence her ended up setting her free? What if a single verse in the Quran unraveled the entire lie? She discovered something that would make even lifelong Muslims tremble. She found something hidden in plain sight, something terrifying, so much that when she left Islam and returned to Christ, the fury that followed her was like hell let loose. She was hunted, threatened, beaten, rejected by her own children. But she stood, and today, she wants to share her story, because there's someone out there just like her, someone who doesn't see the trap yet, someone who's still under the illusion. This is not just Mary's story. It's a cry for truth in a world full of spiritual darkness. Let's hear from Mary, once called Zanab.
My name is Mary, but for 10 long years, I was known as Zanab. My story begins when I was just 19, a sophomore in college. I was studying social sciences and loved poetry and literature. I never imagined that the man I met in the library would change the entire course of my life. His name was Farid. He was from a well-known Muslim family. He was gentle, intelligent, soft-spoken. At first, he seemed harmless. We began as friends. He helped me study, invited me for coffee. He quoted Bible verses, yes, Bible verses, and told me how much Islam respects Jesus. That caught my attention. I remember one evening, we sat under a tree on campus, and he said, "Mary, do you know that Muslims believe in Jesus too? We love him. We believe he's coming back." My heart softened. I thought, maybe this isn't so different after all. He didn't pressure me. Not at first. He told me to take my time. He gave me a Quran. Told me to read Surah Maryam. And I did. And I was moved. But I didn't know then what I know now, that the beauty of words can mask a terrible lie. By the end of that year, I had agreed to start attending the local mosque with him. Just to learn. That's what I told myself. But what I didn't see was the spiritual web slowly tightening around me. I told my family. They were worried, but I told them I was just exploring. They didn't argue much. Maybe they should have. I still wonder if things would have been different if they had fought harder for me. Farid began talking about marriage by the end of my 3rd year in college. I was in love, or at least, I thought I was. He said, to be with me, you need to become one of us. Fully. I converted. I took the Shahada in a private room at the mosque. I remember trembling. I whispered the words they told me to say, Ashhadu alla ilaha illa Allah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasul Allah. The moment I said those words, I felt a weight. Not joy. Not peace. A strange weight, like I had signed something spiritual that I didn't fully understand. But I dismissed it. I was now Zanab, a Muslim woman. Soon after, we got married. At first, things were okay. But the changes came slowly. First, I was asked to stop attending church completely. It's haram, Farid said. Then, I had to change how I dressed. Hijab first. Then abaya. Then niqab. Soon, I couldn't leave the house without him or his permission. The once gentle Farid became distant. Then cold. Then angry. He said I talked too much. That I questioned too much. When I asked why women couldn't lead prayer or why divorce was so easy for men but so hard for women, he would say, "Don't question what Allah has decreed." I bore 3 children for him, 2 girls and 1 boy. And every time I looked into their eyes, I told myself, this is worth it. Endure for them. But I was dying inside. I wasn't allowed to sing. Not even to hum worship songs in private. I wasn't allowed to read the Bible anymore. He found my Bible once and burned it in front of me. He said, "This book is corrupt. It has no place in my home." I wept. But I stayed. Until something changed. One day, I came across an old friend from college, Lydia. She was still a Christian. She looked me in the eyes and whispered, "Mary, do you ever miss him?" I couldn't answer. But I did. Oh, how I missed him. Lydia secretly gave me a pocket-sized Bible and told me to hide it. I did. Deep in the lining of my closet, behind old clothes. And late at night, when everyone was asleep, I would open it and read. Sometimes just a verse. Sometimes I'd just hold it and weep. One night, I had a dream. I saw a man in white, glowing, with wounds in his hands. He called my name Mary, not Zanab. "Mary, come back to me." I woke up shaking, tears flooding my pillow. I began asking dangerous questions again. One day, I decided to read the Quran, not the way they told me, but truly read it, cover to cover. And then I saw it, something I had never seen before. It was Surah Al-Imran 354. It said, "And they, the disbelievers, planned, but Allah planned. And Allah is the best of planners." Something clicked in my mind. I remembered reading that verse during a sermon in the mosque. But now I saw it with open eyes. In some translations, planned is translated as deceived. I dug deeper. I studied commentaries. I asked, wait, are you telling me that Allah deceives? And that was the beginning of my awakening. If the God of Islam brags about being the best of deceivers, what does that mean about his nature? What kind of God is proud of deception? I couldn't unsee it. I began connecting the dots. The silence. The suppression. The violence. The fear. And now, this? A God who boasts about deceiving? That night, I fell to my knees and cried out, "Jesus, if you're still there, please rescue me." And he did. But escape wouldn't come easy. Because when I told Farid I was leaving Islam, everything exploded. The moment I told Farid that I was no longer a Muslim, I knew something inside the house shifted. It was like the walls themselves recoiled in rage. I waited until the children were asleep. I sat him down. My hands were shaking. My voice trembled. I said, "Farid, I can't live this way anymore. I've been lying to myself and to you. I don't believe in Islam. I never truly did. I've come back to Christ." At first, he stared at me, like he didn't hear me right. Then he stood up slowly, like a storm rising from the earth. "What did you say?" His voice dropped low. I said, "I'm not a Muslim. I'm leaving Islam." There was silence. Heavy. Thick. Dangerous. Then he shouted. Words I don't want to repeat. He called me a traitor. A kafir. A shame to the family. He told me I had cursed Allah and deserved death. He slapped me. I had never seen that side of him before. Not like that. Not with such hate in his eyes. I thought I could reason with him. I tried to explain. I tried to show him the verse in the Quran, to tell him what I found, but he shoved me hard against the wall. "You are no longer the mother of my children," he spat. "You are dead to me." I didn't sleep that night. I held my Bible close to my chest. I prayed. And I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Because I knew I was going to lose everything. The next morning, he took the children, told them I was sick, that I had lost my mind, that I was cursed, that I hated Allah. And then he called his brothers. 3 of them came to the house by evening. One of them, Amjad, was a bearded man who stared at me like I was a piece of filth. He said, "You know what happens to murtads, right? Apostates like you?" They didn't hit me that night. But the threat hung in the air like poison. I left. I had to. I packed a small bag, grabbed my Bible, and slipped out the back door while they were arguing in the front. I walked for miles. I didn't know where I was going. I was barefoot. My feet were bleeding. But I knew I had to leave. I called Lydia from a stranger's phone. I couldn't risk using mine. I told her I was in danger. She didn't ask questions. She just came. She took me in, hid me in her basement for days. She gave me food, clothes, and the space to breathe for the first time in years. But even there, I wasn't safe. Farid filed a police report that I was mentally unstable and had abandoned my children. I was reported missing. Posters were put up with my old photo, Zanab in hijab. I couldn't go to the authorities. Not in our community. Not where the police themselves sympathized with Islamic law. I knew women like me, apostates, who had disappeared without a trace. The threats started coming in. Text messages. Voicemails. Emails. "Come back to Islam or you will die. You have brought shame to your family. The punishment for apostasy is death." One voicemail. I still remember it. A voice I recognized, Farid's cousin, saying, "We know where you are. If you speak against Islam, we will burn you alive." I lived in fear. I moved from house to house. Sometimes in the trunk of Lydia's car. I couldn't stay too long in one place. People were watching. But even in hiding, Jesus met me. Every night, I prayed. I read scripture like a starving woman. Verses leapt off the pages. I read John 14 verse 6 again and again. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. It was so clear, so clean, so full of love. No fear, no trickery, no manipulation. Unlike the verse in the Quran about Allah being the best of deceivers. It haunted me, the contrast. One night, while hiding in a small village church basement, I met a woman named Clara. She was an ex-Muslim from Somalia. She had fled death just like me. We talked all night. And she told me something I would never forget. She said, the truth always costs something. Sometimes it costs everything. But it's still the truth. I began to speak, in whispers at first, sharing my story with Christian groups who helped hidden believers. They couldn't believe I had come from a devout Muslim home and left after reading a single verse. But I told them, it wasn't just the verse. It was everything. The cruelty, the fear, the silence, the control. The fact that I had to ask permission to even smile. The fact that I could not ask questions without being told I was dishonoring Allah. And that verse, that one verse, was like a needle popping the illusion. They were shocked when I quoted it, and they deceived, and Allah deceived. And Allah is the best of deceivers. Surah 354. Some Muslims tried to tell me it didn't mean that. That deceiver wasn't the right translation. But I checked Arabic sources. I went deep. I studied with ex-imams. It was clear. The word mocker, deception. It was not metaphorical. What kind of God brags about being the best at deceiving? That question haunted me. My story began to spread in small circles. And with it, the threats got worse. Once, someone left a note on the church door, "We know she's here. The sword is coming." Another time, someone tried to break into the safe house where I was staying. But by God's grace, I had already been moved 2 days earlier. I couldn't contact my children. Every time I tried, Farid blocked me. The courts, of course, were no help. They saw me as the unstable, runaway wife who had abandoned her faith and family. The pain of being cut off from my children was worse than any threat. Every birthday, every school year, every time I saw a mother hug her child in the supermarket, I broke. I still do. But I had to believe that one day, they would know the truth. That one day, they would ask questions. That one day, they would find their way home, not just to me, but to Christ. That is my prayer. That's what keeps me going. There came a moment I never thought I'd reach. A moment when I stopped running, not because the danger ended, but because I realized I couldn't keep silent any longer. I had spent too many nights whispering my story in basements and secret houses. I had spent too many hours crying into my Bible, aching for my children, asking God why me, why this? And then it hit me, if I don't speak, someone else will die in silence. There are girls like I once was, sitting in classrooms, listening to lies wrapped in sweet words. There are women trapped in homes, suffocating under the weight of obedience, told that their tears are rebellion. There are men, too, doubting, afraid to even breathe their questions out loud. And they need to know that Jesus is real. That freedom is real. That there is hope beyond the veil of fear. So I said yes when a pastor invited me to speak at a small underground Christian conference. It was held in a secluded area outside the city. About 30 people gathered. Some wore masks, not for sickness, but to protect their identities. Some were ex-Muslims like me. Some were curious seekers. Some were pastors who had taken great risks just to be there. I stood at the front. My knees were weak. My voice trembled. But I told them everything. From the college days when I met Farid, to the love story that became a trap. From my conversion in marriage, to the night I read the verse in the Quran that opened my eyes. I shared how I saw the difference between a God who deceives and a God who redeems. I told them about my children and how I pray for them every night that they will one day find the truth I almost missed. I spoke for over an hour. By the end, there were tears in the room. People were praying. Others came up to me, silently squeezing my hands. A young woman whispered, "Your story saved my life." I drove back that night with Lydia. It was quiet. Peaceful, almost. Until we saw the car behind us. At first, we thought it was coincidence. Just another vehicle on a dark road. But then it sped up. Got close. Too close. Then came the headlights flashing. Then the sharp swerve. Our car spun off the road. Lydia screamed. I saw a figure get out of the other car. He had something in his hand. A metal pipe? A bat? I couldn't see. But I knew it was them. Someone had found out. Maybe from a relative. Maybe someone at the event had leaked. We were trapped. But then, a miracle happened. Another car appeared, from the opposite direction. It was a pastor and his wife, running late from the same event. Their headlights hit the man's face and he fled. We were shaken. But alive. Later, the police said they found no evidence. No license plate. No witnesses. Just skid marks and broken branches. But I knew. It was Jesus. That night, as I lay awake in a safe house again, I whispered, "I'm not afraid anymore. Do what you will with me, Lord. I'm yours." From that day forward, I began to speak more boldly. Carefully, yes, but clearly. I've spoken to Christian groups. Shared in private Zoom meetings. Written anonymous articles under a pseudonym. I've told my story again and again, not because it's comfortable, but because it matters. I'm not trying to attack Muslims. I still love Farid in a way, and I love my children more than my own life. But love and truth must walk hand in hand. And the truth is, Islam deceived me. Not just with words, but with control. It told me who I could be. How I could dress. What I could say. What I must never question. It gave me rules but never peace. It gave me fear but never love. Jesus gave me both truth and grace. He found me when I was buried under years of lies. He didn't slap me for doubting. He embraced me for searching. He gave me something Islam never could, assurance. Assurance that I am saved. That I am loved. That I am free. There are days I ache for my children. I have dreams where I'm holding them again. I wake up in tears. But I trust that God is writing their story, too. I still get threats. There are places I cannot go. I live with caution. Some days with fear. But I have peace. Deep peace. And if I could go back and speak to that college girl, the one who was flattered, deceived, drawn in by sweet words and half-truths, I would tell her this. Love doesn't demand silence. Truth doesn't fear questions. And freedom never hides behind threats. Now, I am Mary again. Not Zanab. Not the woman I was forced to become. I am a daughter of God. A witness. A survivor. A believer. And to those who still doubt, who still fear, who still wonder if there's something more, I say this. Don't settle for shadows. Run to the light. Jesus is waiting.